All right. Well, hello and welcome to the Monday, February 22nd, 2021 virtual meeting of the Green Bay Planning Commission. We'll go ahead and start with a roll call. Chair Lisa Hanson, present. Vice Chair Jacob Miller.
Present.
Alder Veronica Corpus-Dax will be joining us shortly. Commissioner Sydney Bremer.
Present.
Commissioner Darius Daniels.
Present.
And Commissioner Autumn Linsmeyer.
Present.
All right. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Approval of the agenda for the February 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by by Vice Chair Miller and a second by Commissioner Bremer. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And then approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes from the February 8th, 2021 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
Move to approve.
Second.
So motion by Commissioner Bremer, second by Commissioner Linsmeyer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? And that moves forward. And then moving into regular business. Consideration with possible action on the request from Alder Chris Weary, District 8, that the property at 1022 Ridge Road, operating as Darjun Recovery House, be required to apply for a conditional use permit. This would be in accordance with Green Bay Municipal Code 13.602 and 13.1603. And recommendation is to refer to staff.
Would that be our action then? Refer to staff?
Yeah, I guess do we moving forward with this?
Yeah, I think we would just ask for a direction from the commission to refer this to staff. This question has been, I believe, has been brought forward to staff informally, and Alder Weary is requesting some additional action on this.
Yeah.
Move to refer to staff.
Second.
All right. Motion by Vice Chair Miller, a second by Commissioner Bremer. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? So then that's just going to be referred to staff to work on, correct?
And we'll provide an update on the actual work that is done, probably, hopefully, at our next meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Neil. All right. Moving on to item number 2. Consideration with possible action on the request to amend the official map for greenway uses along Erie Road, the property known as The Woods, submitted by Joel Erfurth, Mach 4 Engineering.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This request is part as we'll be seeing a few times over. So I'm going to give a pretty general overview about the project itself, and then from there break down the official map amendment request individually. So this area is along Erie Road on the east side of town. I'm not a golfer, but this is part of the Woods Golf Course. I have no idea which set of holes this is, but I think it's a back 9. Again, I don't golf. Either way, they have been using this as a proposed development area. There is a housing development that's being proposed along this parcel. So they've already divided off the main woods parcel into the back parcel, which is here. Main access along Erie Road at this point. The parcel itself has Baird Creek running through it and a ravine along Baird Creek. So there is some natural features along the middle of this parcel. So what is being proposed overall is a housing development. On the east side of the ravine would be single-family lots developed like most single-family lots are, regular lot sizes. On the east side of the ravine would be more of a condo development. This still has some details to be hashed out. Almost all of it does actually, but this would be a little bit higher density, smaller footprint to allow for a different arrangement of housing types here. This does take up most of the capacity of the parcel usage. With that, I mean, the greenway would be very prominent within the middle, which is this area here. But it does have, blends well with the neighboring existing housing that's to the west by having the single family lots here, and then to have a more concentrated condo single family development on the east side along Erie Road. This map kind of shows those three areas differentiated here. So the green is the area we'll be talking about tonight, and then the two housing developments shown here in blue and in purple. Something I wanted to note is that typically the Plan Commission sees official map amendments for road patterns. That is not applicable here. So the official map shows the roadways highlighted here in yellow, and the proposed development, as seen here, follows a similar pattern. So there's no need to amend the road pattern here. What we do need to amend are the boundaries for the parkway. So going through this process, we realized that some of our mapping here at City Hall is not accurate. So these boundaries are not accurate from our Parks Department, but they're a pretty good representation of what is already designated as Greenway, what is proposed for Greenway. There's a lot of different language that we use throughout our zoning code and then in the Parks Department between Parkway and Greenway, but this is actually designated Greenway area. So a lot of things on our official map are general boundaries that just show this is kind of, the point of this application is to fix on that and create these boundaries a little bit more specifically. So this is coming through as part of the housing development project, but in all actuality, it's just so the Parks Department can have a strict boundary when they do create parcels out of this, so that way they know which portions is going to be for them for greenway space and what's going to be really dedicated to the housing development. So we're going from something that generally looks like this with the proposed layout here. So this obviously shows more strict boundaries. This is based off of the creek, the ravine, and then the necessary setbacks in those areas. So this has been discussed with our Parks Department and our Department of Public. This is the boundary that they've generally agreed on. So with the official map amendment, it will reflect these boundaries. So that way, when the applicant comes through to do the rest of the planning process, which would be a comp plan amendment and rezoning, and then also the land division, which will be a subdivision plat and also a condo plat, they would also have to go through site plan process and building plan process. So there are a plentiful amount of approvals that are needed after this. This is really just to dedicate this greenway area to make sure that the Bear Creek area is preserved and that it's reflected on our maps accurately. So that way, when we go through our land division process, these boundaries are already set. And then the Parks Department can in the future deal with how we're going to go through the transaction process of where this parcel goes. But for right now, the boundaries are really just needed to be reflected on this map, so that way we know what will be public access and what is going to be for the roadway. The roadways for the eastern portion of this are yet to be determined. The idea is that some may be public, most private. It really just depends on how the condo development plays out in the future. So, there are no roadways on our road pattern map here. This is our existing road pattern map. So even if something does come through the public side, it wouldn't need the amendment because there's nothing to amend. They would just get platted, it would need to be. So as far as the map is concerned, we realistically only need to look at that middle portion for Greenway. This has gone out to property owners within 400 feet of this request. We use 400 feet for anything that's a little bit more substantial. This did require a neighborhood meeting, which they did virtually in October, which planning staff attended as well. The meeting went really well. People were very respectful. They have very thoughtful questions. I know there are some neighbors on here. I also posted about this in their neighborhood association Facebook page. They have a lot of questions that are specific to the housing development and also, some infrastructure things. What happens to the roadways? What kind of drainage and other issues can they anticipate? Some of those may be worked through at the zoning stage, but I realistically think that a lot of those will be done through our regular staff approvals, which are the site plan, building plan, those sorts of things. There are a lot of questions about the drainage. I think that some of the neighbors are having an existing issue with drainage. So I think they want to make sure that those things are adhered to, but that doesn't really reflect anything with the official map amendment. So I think some of the future applications, we may get more questions about how those processes will work and what kind of controls the neighbors may have. But for this in particular, we're really just looking to establish this boundary and making sure that forward. So that we are recommending approval of this request. I know that there are some neighbors here that I'm sure would like to speak. There was also attached in the packet a letter of not support. I think that was more generally about the housing development in its totality, not necessarily about the boundaries of the official map, but that was attached, and I believe that they are on this call today too. So I'm sure they would like to open the floor, and the applicant is here from Mach 4 Engineering.
Okay, thanks, Steph.
I do have a question for Stephanie. I understand the different steps. Am I understanding correctly that we need to deal with the official map before we deal with the comprehensive plan?
Yes, official map needs to be taken care of first, so we know which boundaries to reflect for that comprehensive plan amendment. And then from there, the comp plan will inform how that zoning looks. We may run those two concurrently. We haven't really decided that yet, but the official map does need to be approved at Plan Commission before we can bring the comprehensive plan here for approval.
Do we need to concern ourselves at all with the comprehensive plan showing the far eastern segment, which would be housing, as parklands?
The recommendation for the comprehensive plan would then reflect having the housing on either side and then the park in the middle. So right now the comprehensive plan shows all of the east side as parkway, and that's what we would be amending because the other side already shows housing. So that would be the amendment, is that portion being shown as housing then.
We have generally approved things that fell within the comprehensive plan. And this does not, because the comprehensive plan has not yet been amended for the far eastern triangle.
Well, we wouldn't approve the housing development as part of this, but the official map is really just setting boundaries for public infrastructure. So the comprehensive plan doesn't necessarily play into this, which is why I didn't really show it on this application, because that shows the future uses. And the Parks Department is saying, we don't need this whole area for the use. We only need this middle section for the greenway use. So that's why the boundary proposal is coming first. So that way we know where that hard boundary is for the Parks Department on that east side. So when we amend the comprehensive plan, that boundary is already set for us.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
I guess I just have a question for Stephanie too. Is there going to be public access from these houses or from this area to the parkway? Or is that something, I guess it's probably not something, I saw a question come up in chat. So I guess I was just kind of curious myself.
Sure. I think that Joel might be able to speak a little bit better to that. I know that the Parks Department would obviously love to have the entire Bear Creek Parkway connected. Right up on the north side, these are still private residences, so there would not be a connection here to my knowledge. I don't think that the Parks Department has been able to work out any sort of connection at this point. But with this, since we know this development is coming in, I believe it's these red segments that are the connection points to this parkway here. So as the property gets developed, these would be shown then as pedestrian connections into that greenway area. So while this hasn't been figured out yet, this would be part of the housing development itself. It would basically be treated like a sidewalk that it would need to be installed.
Steph. Were there any other questions amongst the commission? And can you put up the gallery view, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to open the floor.
Madam Chair, I don't have any questions, but I have a couple comments to make, if that's all right.
Sure.
Unlike Stephanie, I am a golfer. So I guess wanted to just express some, I'll say mixed feelings about the redevelopment as a whole. I guess as a golfer, I'm disappointed that we'll be losing half the whole course that I've played quite often. And as any local golfer knows, there's some limited options, especially limited affordable options to golf, and the Woods is definitely one of those. So to see it get split in half like this, of course, is a little tough. But also as a member of the Planning Commission, and I'm quite ecstatic to see that we're going to potentially get this many new housing units to be brought online, especially considering the housing market that's in the area right now. This will definitely help that. But I think mainly just back to the agenda item at hand, and Steph did a good job of laying this out that there's many pieces to this that we'll have to take up. And specifically going into the public comment, I just kind of want to try to keep this on track as best we can tonight on what exactly is in scope of the action that we're taking, which is the amendment to the map, specifically related to the Baird's Park Ravine Greenway section. So we'll try to keep as much information as we can specific to that, but I'm sure there's a lot of people from the neighborhood adjacent. They're going to have a lot of questions that we may not just be able to answer tonight. I would definitely recommend staying in touch with the neighborhood association in Alderdorf to probably get some of those questions that we may not have answers to tonight. But we certainly are looking forward to hearing from people too. But just want to make it clear what the action is tonight is specifically that official map amendment.
Okay, yeah, and thanks for that clarification. So yeah, it's the request to amend the official map for the Greenway. So we're not necessarily dealing with the development that's possibly going in there. It's more of amending that map first before we move on to that. So excellent point.
And if I could further clarify that, does this mean essentially, Steph, protecting that space along Baird's Creek?
Yes.
That's what a mapping move would do.
Yes. So before it was held in private hands, everything that we have that's a proposed green we've wanted to get our hands on to protect. So making these boundaries really is just getting the next step to that.
Thank you.
Motion to open the floor then.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Miller or Vice Chair Miller and a second by Commissioner Bremer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so the floor is now open. So if you would like to speak on this agenda item, if you could please come forward, state your name and address, and let us know your thoughts. And if you could please, hold your comments to 3 minutes. If you are calling in on just a phone line, it is *6 to unmute yourself. So is there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
All right, I'm Mike Etheridge of 3397 Sitka Street. I liked your presentation. It explained a lot to me what was going on with the Greenway. Are you looking to connect this Greenway further south at a certain time?
I mean, Steph, I'm not sure. That's not really something.
Okay.
That's what the scope of this right now.
Okay.
It is. We do have someone from our Parks Department might have more insight on that, but it really wouldn't. This is only for this parcel specifically, so it wouldn't have any further connection here.
Good enough. One more question. Time frame for development. I mean, you explained the process on this. Is it going to be viable this year that they'll be starting some sort of infrastructure on this development?
Mike, with this portion, we're looking for any comments or concerns that you have. When the developer comes on, we can certainly ask those questions to him, but we don't really have those answers until we talk. Right now, we're really just dealing with that map for the Greenway. I know you guys have a lot of questions living in the area. It's really what we're dealing with right now. We can certainly talk to the developer and see what they have to say about it.
Okay. Well, we'll keep in touch with you guys through these meetings. So thank you very much. Oh, I must comment, Jake, I might have a few of your golf balls Since you played that part of the woods so much, so if you want him back, I can.
Are you off 12? Because then definitely.
Yes.
Yes, we are. Right off of 12 there, yeah.
All right, thank you, Mike. Was there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
Madam Chair, if someone wishes to speak, do they need to make any kind of signal to you or just unmute themselves?
No, yeah, they could just unmute and start talking. That's fine. Because I can't see all three screens at once.
Okay, I guess I'm
People.
muted. My name is Patrick Ryan. My wife and I, Barbara, live at 341 Crosswinds. Basically, we're on number 12 also. And I realize this is the very first step in a long process, but we wanted to make sure that our comments and our opposition to the development does follow along through this process, which I guess is sort of indeterminate as how long it's going to take before this the final decision is made. But just want to make sure that our comments survive all of the steps that we are about to see in the future here.
Okay, absolutely. And anytime there are developments happening like this and you're within a certain foot distance from this, you will get letters when this is going to be in the Planning Commission. I'm assuming other committees that it might go through as well, that you would get letters from the city. So you would be alerted if you're that close every time that there's a meeting regarding this development.
So is there an estimate right now as to how long this will take in order for it to go through each step of the rezoning and the change to comprehensive plan?
Yeah, there isn't at this point. Right now we're just it's that for that official map for the Greenway, but there is not a timeline at this point. It's very, I guess it's in its early stages.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I gotta mute us again. Sorry for that.
Was there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? If you're calling in on a phone line, you can just *6 to unmute yourself. All right.
I would like the Ryans to know that we received their thoughtful letter, that has been distributed to all the members of the Plan Commission. Thank you for it.
Is the developer still on? I saw he had left earlier. Oh no, I do see Mr.
Yes, I'm still on. I had a little internet issue that dumped me off.
Oh,
But, got back on.
Okay, if you just want to state your name and address, I guess I don't know if you heard some of the questions that they had about developments and how long and what kind of time frame. I don't know if that's anything that you have information at this point.
Well, I guess we're kind of we're in the same boat you guys are in terms of planning. So I mean, I think the development would like to get going as soon as we can, but we, obviously this is step one of many. So we'll continue to work. We've been in pretty close contact with planning and parks, throughout the process, and that will continue. I could address, some of the comments that came up in the letter and give you our input on it anyway. There were some concerns expressed about construction traffic, which, that will be further down the road, but we'll certainly be working with DPW and within the confines of, the city's standards on, hours operation and erosion control and so forth. There's some questions about or concerns about drainage, which with flowing to the west, and that'll be addressed on site plan and stormwater management review. So that should be alleviated for everyone in that area. The green space, the road pattern has been established before. So on the west side of the creek, we're really not changing anything. Then that wasn't planned 20 years ago. And the east side, we're going to have that conservancy in there. So that is our intent, to have that transferred over to the city. There was one comment about not being able to do this in person. I couldn't agree. I'm sure everybody's in the same boat. Never thought I'd wish for the day when we could actually go have a planning commission meeting and go there. But that's out of everyone's control. And then there was some questions about an aesthetic barrier. And this is pertaining to the west side of the creek. And we're proposing that we follow the planning, and that'd be single family R1, and any landscaping in there would follow R1 standards. So that's kind of a, that's something we'll work through as the process goes on, but we're proposing R1. So whatever, applicable landscape standards would hold true on that side. Is that in a nutshell? In the construction schedule again, whether we'll be moving dirt this fall, I don't know. We've got a long ways to go. A city's just one part of the process. So.
Hi. Hi, my name is Stacy Seedorf. Can you hear me okay?
Hold on just a second, Stacy.
All right.
Were there any members of the commission that had questions for the applicant? No? Okay. All right. Go ahead, Stacy, if you could just state your name and address, please.
Sure. My name is Stacy Seedorf. I live at 351 Crossman's Lane. My husband and I moved here a couple years ago, and one thing that we've really come to appreciate here is the amount of wildlife that we see in the backyard. There's a lot of deer running through the golf course and such. And just curious to know if there was greater consideration put into allowing for more green space so as to not push, the wildlife further away from, where they're kind of homing and existing today. So just kind of, I guess my big question is what kind of thought process was put into how large that green space should be, and then how much space you actually allotted for residential?
Okay. And I think at this point, I understand that a lot of people have a lot of questions about this. I think at this point, we're still in a very beginning phases of it. And really, when you come forward to speak, it's about, if you have any comments or concerns, and obviously the wildlife is something that's a concern for you, and I could 100% appreciate that. I don't think that we have those answers right now because this is still very new.
Okay, thank you. And my apologies if the question wasn't warranted at this time. I just assumed since we were speaking, the Greenway specifically, that was a question that could be answered, right, since we're determining the size.
And Steph, do you have anything to add to that? I see you unmuted, so.
Yes. Well, between the applicant and then Corey from our Parks Department, they may have more insight on this. But typically when we're looking at greenway areas, we want to obviously take into consideration what are the natural features and then any necessary setbacks. So like for a creek, for instance, you're going to have an environmentally sensitive area that has a setback. There's a flood area offside of that. For the ravine, you want to make sure you're not close to any steep slopes. So I'm sure that they took those things into consideration when making those boundaries. I don't know if there was any additional land that was added from the Parks Department when they were talking with the applicant about that. But something to take into consideration is that this parcel, I think over a third of it is going to be greenway, which is pretty rare for our new housing developments. So 1/3 of the land is already being dedicated to greenway space, which I think is pretty substantial. But I don't know if there was any additional things that they took into consideration. But normally when we're setting setback areas for protected landscapes, that's usually what we're looking at, are those couple things.
Okay, thank you.
Since the floor is open, could we hear from the Parks Department on that?
Oh.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Okay, here, see if I can get the video on too. Hello. Hi, I'm Corey. I'm the park planner with the Parks Department. I wasn't brought in the initial stages of this until a little bit later, but I can tell you what I do know. As far as how the existing parkway boundary was set, I'm not sure. That was before my time. I do know, though, the intent is to eventually be able to expand to the north and south would be our desire, so that we could have a nice buffer for that whole section of the to meet up to the existing Bear Creek Greenway, and then, you know, to extend it down along the creek. And so when we looked at the boundary with Joel, we talked about how we wanted to have at least a 20-foot buffer at the top of the ridge, you know, to be able to access the space up above the ravine area, and then, you know, also down below as well. And so that red area that Steph pointed out would be like a easement access to the space for the public to be able to access it too. So that's kind of the gist of what I know. If anybody has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I know the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation too was very excited to learn that we might be acquiring this property. They help us with maintaining the greenway and preservation of it. So they're excited to see this opportunity for us as well.
I would assume, if I might continue, that the Parks Department is also limited, or the city is limited in how much land it can purchase. And that would have something to do with not proposing wider boundaries running to the northeast and the southwest. Were there any other considerations that had to be considered addressing the question of whether or not a larger space was considered?
I don't know. I think the amount of buffer that we would be getting with these boundaries would be wonderful and probably adequate for being able to, you know, have a nice kind of riparian area for the creek. And so I'm sure there is some limit to what we can acquire. What that is, I'm not sure. You know, there's only so many resources we have to go around to maintain those areas. And our hope would be to, at some point, convert that to a native planting, hopefully sooner rather than later, to help, you know, with that better water quality and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think right now it's definitely a great start to helping that water quality improvement with the area that's being proposed.
Thank you.
Sure.
Did anyone else from the commission have questions for?
I have a question. I'm not a commissioner.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm Lynn Peters and I live on Crosswinds Lane as well. But the city is not purchasing this property. Am I right about that? This is being given to the city. Am I correct, Corey?
That's still being worked through right now.
Okay. That's how we had heard the story. So thanks.
Oh, sure.
And Lynn, could you provide your full address, please?
Sure. 319 Crosswinds Lane.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Was there anyone else from the public that was wishing to add comments on this?
Move that we close the public access and return to our regular order of business.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Bremer, second by Commissioner Daniels. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, and so back to regular order. Any further discussion amongst the commission?
That last comment did spark a question for me for Stephanie. So in terms of the timeline here, would anything with the sale, and if it's been done already, maybe it's not a problem, would anything with the sale affect what's going on with the map amendment here?
No.
Any effect, I guess is what I want to say.
I think like we got this information from both the applicant and the Parks Department directly, as far as like the legal description, the exhibit, all of it came from them. So I think that they're working to have that. If the boundary changes a little bit in either direction, it's still within the intent of the official map, so we wouldn't need to do anything with that. So it doesn't matter when that transfer takes place or, who owns it. That doesn't really affect the map itself.
Okay, I guess I was just, that you can answer the question, but I was just wondering if there was any small changes, whether it be to the easements or any of the corners of the boundaries. Would it be mucked up by the sale if something went off track?
I don't think so. It would have to be a pretty major change for us to get back involved in it. The official map is it's kind of like our comprehensive plan. It has like the general boundaries, because even like the roadway pattern doesn't match exactly what they're showing on their proposed plans, but it's very close, and that's why they don't need the amendment for it. So.
Okay, and then just the final point of clarification. So the city would end up owning and controlling that greenway section, and the final boundaries would be determined when we actually plat everything out, correct?
That is the plan.
Got it. Okay.
Any further discussion?
I'm wondering if Alder Dorf wants to make any comment.
No, I'm really here gathering information. If I wanted to make a comment, believe me, my hand would be up. But I've been hearing from the people that live there. I know this is going to be a process. I had let Barb Ryan and her husband know, just because we emailed, that I had to be at protection and policy first. But luckily, I got here in time for this item. So I'm going to continue in a learning mode here, because it is a very long process and you are early in the planning stages. I'm just glad people are coming forward and being very honest and very open about their concerns. And then maybe they can't be addressed right now, but eventually then it will be the right time. So I'm glad they're hanging in there and they're showing up for the meetings. Thank you, constituents, for doing that. Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion?
If not, you got me first there, Veronica. So second.
Wait, what just happened?
Made a motion to approve.
Motion by Alder Corpus Jackson, a second for Vice Chair Miller.
Yes.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Do we need roll call on this, Madam Chair?
We do not.
Then
Right. Any opposed? All right, and that approved unanimously. Moving forward to City Council meeting. And when is the next City Council meeting?
The first reading will be at the March 2nd meeting. And then the second reading with a public hearing will be at the March 16th meeting.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Steph. All right. And then moving along to item number 3 on the agenda, consideration with possible action on the Down Green Bay Incorporated Business Improvement District's year-end reporting for 2019 and 2020.
Guys, it's the really exciting time of year when you get to hear the report out from bids. It's financial reports. Everyone's going crazy about them. You're the first to see them. It's super exciting. I don't have any presentations for you. I believe that you were emailed a video from downtown Green Bay. Each of them have the same application number, but they're all going to be presenting the same data. We are recommending approval on all of them. It's really just to report out their year ends for 19 and 20. We missed last year because the pandemic threw us for a loop, so we didn't think it was pressing to get that data at that time. So each of them should have an. Wendy was on the line. I don't know if she still is. So she's there as their bid representative also, if you have any questions that are bid related, but each of them should have the representation here to give a brief presentation.
All right, sounds good. So starting with DGBI, Mr. Merkus.
Yes, good evening, commissioners. And that was quite an introduction. I have never really heard that much excitement to hear about financial reports for business improvement districts, but we will gladly take it. You may have been provided the financial statements for downtown Green Bay Incorporated and Old Main Street. And those are the two business improvement districts that I currently serve as executive director. And so while it seems like 2019 is a while back, definitely we want to be in compliance and share this information with you. So I'm going to start off by sometimes I just put on both hats and I talk about downtown Old Main Street. Going to do it a little different this year. And I will just focus on the downtown Green Bay Incorporated Business Improvement District. You have been provided our financial statements, and I'll make a few comments on that. And, starting off with just looking back to 2019 and some initial thoughts is that 2019 for downtown and Old Main Street, that was one of our best years, maybe our best year in the existence of these organizations in 24 years of existence. When I talk about 2020, we will be going from one of our best years ever to probably the poorest, toughest year ever. And even when I was putting together some comments to share with you, we found a way to make it through. Our organizations, thankfully, have the wherewithal to even survive the 2020 pandemic. 2019 was a year, a big year of events. And thinking back on 19, the reason I say that the downtown had its best year ever is everything was working. Events were working, corporate was working, culture was working, residential was working. So everything was really hitting, and it was tough. It was tough to get slugged by COVID, and I'll get into 2019 in a bit. But from the standpoint of just a financial comment regarding our bid revenues, and we could not be a business improvement district without the partnership that we have with the city. In taking a look at 2019, our bid revenues for that year were about $222,000, but our total revenues for the year were closer to $600,000. So 37% of the revenues that we ran our organization on came from the property owners, the assessment on real estate taxes, but 63% came from other sources. And I just want to point out that we could not be as effective as we are without the event revenue from 60 plus special events that we coordinate, the user fees and concessions, et cetera. But also we have a very strong sponsorship base. We have a year in the city sponsorship. We have title sponsorships that sponsor our events like Fridays on the Facts, Dine on the Deck, the Christmas Parade, and all those events. So 63% of all of our revenues in 19 came from other sources other than the bid. In 2020, however, we had a very tough, practically non-existent year of special events, and 50% of our revenues came from our bid. So we had a higher reliance on the bid. Our revenues went down from events, but so did our expenses related to those events because both the revenue and the expense was eliminated if the event didn't take place. So in 2019, just a robust year of events, Culinary Fight Club at the Automobile Gallery. We had a wonderful Saturday Farmers Market. That was 10,000 plus people on a Saturday morning for 5 months of Saturdays. That changed significantly in 2020. But all of our events, Fridays on the Fox, Dine on the Deck, we put on International Cuisine Crawl, All-American Cuisine Crawl. So a robust season of activities. And we fully intend to bring that excitement back. But it was those events that contributed to more people wanting to live downtown and entrepreneurs wanting to be here. Just a few business highlights looking back in a year, 2019. Hotel Northland opened Valentine's Day 2019. That was huge. You all know the financial hurdles and the legal battles. That was a big win for our community, and to have a Marriott Autograph Edition hotel in our downtown, 160 suites, a convention grade hotel. We're very pleased that they are with us. But a number of other significant business investments. ISG is a wonderful architectural engineering firm that took an entire floor at the Watermark, Diamonds American Diner, Brow Beauty Bar, Gloss, Lion's Mouth. So a nice mix of businesses came to our downtown in the year 2019. And then 2020 hit. We did start the year off with a few events. So we got a few events in, but I would characterize, and if you get a chance to see the video that we put together, it's an 8-minute video. I do want to mention anyone who is on this call, if you want to see our year in review video, you go to downtowngreenbay.com and click on About Us and click on Downtown District. And it is a nice synopsis of how our organization was able to adapt. And I'm very thankful that our team, we stayed on. We did not have to furlough. We did not have to lay off, but we also knew that we had work to do. And while we did fewer events, we did the Saturday Farmers Market in a different fashion, and we were able to conduct that successfully. Most of our events we put on the shelf and knew that there were more important things that we needed to work on, but we did more marketing, promo, and business awareness. We needed to do whatever we could to get the word out to help our businesses to get through this. So there was more work on the marketing and promo side. There was more work on the business support and assistance side. We started a weekly newsletter for our businesses called the Downtown Insider. We helped however we could, finding the resources that would help them survive and kind of get through the tough times. And we did a lot more in what I call the first impression department. The public art, beautification efforts, cleanliness, planters. When we were able to put together a beautiful light display on the city deck for the holidays. And that could not have taken place without a generous sponsorship from American Foods Group. And our organization partnered with them on that. It was a project like that. It's significant in nature. Some things like that just don't show up in our budget, but we make things happen. And that is just an example of a few of those things. We also made a few modifications while we didn't have Nicolay Banks Dine on the Deck. They wanted to continue to support our initiatives, and we came up with a Dine Downtown GB. And this was an initiative to provide direct assistance to small businesses, mostly our restaurants, promote those restaurants in some creative ways, and help them in a few other ways, using some of that sponsorship dollars to directly help a few of these businesses. We also worked really closely with the city in coming up with the downtown dining room on the Adams Street parking lot and invested in that, knowing that a lot of our hospitality businesses, in order for them to survive, would need some outdoor dining. And we plan to bring that back again this year. We're working on that. We also came up with a Downtown Delivers virtual concert series. So our creative people were coming up with ways to still work with the musicians and local artists. Improvements, like I said, by the holiday city deck lights. We came up with custom planters versus, so the downtown planters, we came up with more of a custom nature of doing those. We had a lot of focus on the first impressions, the cleanliness of downtown. And we knew that we needed to continue to take care of it and make it look good. Even though there were fewer people coming downtown, we knew that it needed to be well positioned when times improved and when the stronger downtown employee base came back downtown. From the standpoint of recruitment, again, there weren't as many new businesses arriving, but there were a few. Player 2 Arcade took a spot on Washington Street. Family Services that already has a real strong foothold in downtown. They acquired a building on Monroe Street and invested in it and expanded some of their services. So that in a nutshell, I just wanted to share some of the highlights. That's from 19 and 20 for the downtown district. I'll stop and take a breath if you have any questions for me. And then I think I'm going to sit back and you'll see me again in a few minutes, and I'll give you a brief update on the Main Street district. Happy to answer any of your questions if you haven't.
I just want to know, Jeff, did you adopt that kitten?
We have dogs at home, 2 small dogs. So My daughter wanted it, but no, that wasn't going to happen. Thank you. I'm
Okay,
glad
yeah.
you saw the video, Lisa.
I saw that in the video and I'm like, well, I'm going to ask him if he got that kitten or not. So
That's a neat place. Go check out Brewster's Place. That's a cat adoption center on Main Street. And that building, there are 3 businesses in the Main Street district that opened in that building in July of 2020. 3 businesses opened during a pandemic. And I'll comment a little bit when I talk about Old Main Street, but we were able to boast about 7 new businesses on Main Street in a 1-mile stretch in downtown USA. And that was pretty cool to be able to work with those entrepreneurs who believed in what they did. And Brewster's Place was one of them.
awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff.
And then I would ask the other city businesses that had to close, Jeff.
Yes, unfortunately, there were a few COVID casualties. And we feel bad that happens. That happens in business. Everyone loves scallywags. They did not survive COVID. The Black and Tan restaurant closed, and they may come back someday. But there are some businesses that maybe took a temporary break during COVID. But there were a few closures that took place. When I talked to you a little bit about some of the things that are currently happening. We see some real positive trends in that area where some of those closures are leading to other businesses taking the space.
I'd forgotten about those 2 closures. I was asking you because I thought you had something to brag about, having managed to shift your focus to helping the folks who are already there. I was really impressed generally with the shift you made to deal with the pandemic itself and to find other ways of doing things. Thank you.
Thank you, Sid. And when I'm all done, I am going to boast about some things that are happening in the downtown because I believe that the work that we've done during 2020 has positioned us well to be a place that welcomes business, that's ready to respond, that's willing to promote. And I think that businesses are beginning to see the value when you locate in a downtown district, whether it's Broadway or Old Main Street. And the numbers are looking impressive, and we are going to have quite a few new businesses to promote in the weeks ahead.
Jeff, just a really quick question. Do we have, when it comes to recruitment, I know the old Children's Museum spot downtown has been vacant for a while, as well as the old Fox Heights restaurant. Anything to report on those 2 fronts?
Well, our organization actually leased the former Children's Museum space this winter for a 6-month lease. We wanted to create activity there. We actually wanted to bring our winter farmers market there. So the property owner was very cooperative. We worked with Delaire's Construction, and they went in and helped prepare the space with some pretty significant in-kind demolition. Unfortunately, the winter farmers market didn't happen there. But we were able to work with the Ribbon of Hope group and let them display their wreaths there during December. We've used the space for a lot of displays and murals. So while the Winter Farmers Market didn't happen there, we wanted, and we have the space through the end of March, and it was to create opportunity, to get those doors open, get some businesses in there. We were going to create some safe meeting spaces there as well. So while it didn't work out, we're glad that we took it, and we're trying to create some activity there as well. And we are working with that property owner to try to attract a future long-term tenant there. Fox Heights is a ready-to-go restaurant space. It is in incredible condition. We hope that a restaurateur arrives there with an interest. But we have some already positive signals that there's some growing restaurant activity in the downtown district, and we think that the Fox Heights space, centrally located right on Washington Street, is really ready for the right entrepreneur, ready for its next chef. Mr. Steyer has a question.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Alder Steyer.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you for that. It's, being on council, but also as a citizen of the city, it's good to see some good news this way and staying positive during this very tough time. It's been very tough for all of us, but I appreciate the efforts. And they don't go unnoticed. So I just wanted to thank you as just more or less as a citizen of the city, but also being on council, for your efforts. And we will try everything we can to help support the bids. And you got that from me, at least. And I know other alders feel the same way. So
thank you very much for saying that, Alderman Sawyer. Really appreciate that. I do want to point out that our organization was able to continue doing what we do because we were able to qualify for a PPP late in the year last year to keep all 6 of our people employed. We also were successful in applying for a CARES grant through the city of Green Bay for about $28,000. And that helped us offset some of the costs to put on the Saturday Farmers Market. So we really have a great partnership with many of the departments at City Hall. And thankfully, our budgets are solid because of some of that additional assistance that our organization received this year.
Well, keep us in the loop too. So anything that citizens or other people can do to help along with what you're doing, kudos. Thanks again. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm done.
Jeff, I got some praise for you and then a tough question. I know you mentioned the lights along the city deck, but the lights along Washington, but also in Whitney Park were amazing. I think that brought a lot of character, a lot of life, especially when everybody needed a little extra something this over the holiday season. I think it gave that little extra, and I really hope they all return going forward as well. The tough question being, obviously, there's been some changes in terms of workplaces and with how many offices we have downtown. I'm sure it's on your mind. I know our office downtown, we've been probably about 10% since March. And quite frankly, we're probably going to have to look for different space just to make it work for us. I'm sure it's on your mind, but any ideas, planning that you're making to kind of take that into account?
Yes, Jake, very good question. And there is a strong dependence on a downtown workforce. In good times, in robust times, there's typically 15 to 20,000 time employees in our downtown. And that really is an important part of our downtown economy. We are hopeful that many of our major office users will be returning to their office buildings. There's a strong reliance on companies like Schreiber and Associated and Imperial Supplies. Those are some of the big users. And, what we're hearing is that they will be back. They're on different time frames. But we want to continue to recruit small businesses, medium businesses. There are 3 floors active at the Watermark, but there's 3 floors available as well. And so with some great water views. But without a doubt, the downtown employee and the downtown as a corporate headquarters is something that we want to continue to advocate for. We think it's the right place. We know that companies still need to create their culture. They still need to bring their people together. We are not giving up on corporate headquarters being located in our downtown. We're confident that many of them will be back. Regarding your comment, Jake, regarding the lights, we went out in 1 week's time and raised the dollars to do 25 green and gold trees. We guaranteed all those sponsors that the Packers would be in the Super Bowl, and that helped us a great deal in generating those revenues. But we're so thankful that we got to know this company, Traditions Lighting, on the city deck. We never could have done the green and gold to that extent if our director of First Impressions, Sally Ebling, would not have connected with them, done what we did during the holidays. And we were able to raise those dollars to do 25 trees in 1 week's time. And it was, again, because of some very strong sponsorship relationships that we have. That was Breakthrough and Nicolay Bank and Prevea and American Foods Group and a few others. That just, all it was a phone call or a text. And they said, yes, we're behind you all the way. Let's get downtown spotlight, because we were going all the way. We plan to do that again next year, Jake.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Linsmeyer. Any further discussion? All right, we'll go ahead with a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And then that'll move ahead unanimously, and that'll be at City Council also on March 2nd, correct? All right, and then moving on to item number 4, consideration with possible action on the Military Avenue Business Improvement District's year-end reporting for 2019 and 2020.
Hi, I'm here. This is Leah. So I focused on a number and how we compared. So you guys look at our operating plan, which we give, an outline of the numbers and what we're going to use. And a guess, of course, going into the next year. So 2019, Military Avenue, we've always been pretty conservative on budgeting. I find that comfortable. We rely 100% on our bid. So all of our funds are bid driven. Of course, our events bring in funds, but don't necessarily make funds. We're getting a little more on the positive for the farmers market. We've always just broke even. And lately we've been able to do better on the farmers market and increase that. But our operating plan for 2019, we changed the budget by $1,600, which was just a small correction. And then end of year spending was by just under 10,000. And it seems like when I looked back at this report, it was kind of interesting how everything came up in 10% cushion, which is awesome. I think that's a good way to budget in a conservative way. So 2020 operating plan, we changed the budget by quite a bit more. We added, we had planned to do some public amenities and wanted to get public feedback and do a strategic plan or like a community planning session. And with COVID, that never happened. So we did not spend those funds. We still did do some public amenities. And now we are going to partner with the transportation department and put in some bus benches, which is great. We have, I always secretly shoot pictures of people sitting on the sidewalk or sitting in the grass on the corners and pass that on as this is a need. So we're going to definitely add those this year. I think we're still not ready to do a public gathering event with strategic planning, but I think because the transportation department was already working on benches, that was a really good fit for us. So we hope to spend it, but we ended 2020 underspending by about $59,000. And again, the cause of that was due to the pandemic and not having that strategic plan get together. Our market this year saw a 400% increase in selling EBT, which is the food program vouchers. I think we were an easy to get to in and out market. And I'm not completely clear on why that is. Either more people were in poverty, more people in poverty found out about us. We did have a couple grants with Wello, and they did a push for the Hispanic population to come, and we definitely saw an increase in Hispanic and Somali populations coming to the market. And so that kind of turned me to do some language signage, different language signages for this coming year. So that'll be good. I feel like I'm even wanting to promote more international food if possible. I heard stories of a Puerto Rican group of people that there's someone that does just a pop-up farmer's market, and she brings food that at the normal grocery store here. So I'm going to invite her to come to our market as well. So I think the pandemic didn't hurt us necessarily. It changed the way people shopped, and I think we benefited from that in the long run. Our businesses are holding steady. They're definitely hurting, but we didn't really lose anyone. So I hear, back and forth, I don't think I'm going to make it, things like that, but then they will get support and some of the grant funds to help bring them out of that. And we're actually working with the city on our community development block grant funds, and we're going to earmark that for the Military Avenue businesses. So they'll have another chance to just help themselves get further down the line, and hopefully we'll see where things change. But I do think they all pivoted very well in offering services. One that was super creative was the Rock and Roll Land put boxes of albums out, and there was a set time, and then at that time you had to go get the albums, and it was $20, and it was like a secret album. You couldn't look in it, you just had to buy it. And I think it was super successful. They were always sold out. So they found some pretty creative ways to do things. But all in all, we're hanging in there and going forward, and I think we'll continue with our conservative budgeting and our 10% cushions. I'd open that for questions. Sid,
Yes. Sorry. Thank you so much, Leah. Yeah, you guys really did an amazing job with the farmers market, and it was just really, I'm really surprised how all the different markets were so busy this year. But it's just that changing how we're doing business a little bit versus, we lost one thing, but we gain other things. So that's really amazing. But yeah, go ahead, Sid. You're on mute, though.
Thank you. I thought I was better at that. Leah, the first is a question of amazement. How is it that you managed to pull in significantly, like 50% more money on event funding and sponsorship in 2020 than you did in 2019?
I do believe that's because our market was so successful, and we did get grant funding. We had a grant for COVID relief, so I was able to purchase signage, and we actually had a hand washing station, which was almost $100 a day for the farmers market. So all of those things were covered by that grant. So our spending was up a little bit too. I have it in front of me, but I don't want to look too closely. But
it was higher expense, yeah. But that's really wonderful. And the other thing is a point of bafflement for me in looking at the revenue area. What are the projected delinquent assessments doing there, and how do they fit into your overall revenues? That shows the limits of my understanding of budgeting jargon.
Yeah, so the bid funds are paid to the city based on the valuation of the business. And some businesses that are struggling or not paying taxes might not pay that year. So we build in that cushion in case it doesn't get paid. Eventually, I believe the city would catch up to them and it would get paid because the next owner would actually have to pay those back property taxes. But that's what that is. And I think, sometimes it just gets withheld for like a year and then we'll see it come back. So the city just gives a separate check after for the people that didn't pay on time.
Thank you. I do understand that. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Well done.
Go ahead, Alder Stoyer.
Thank you, Chair. Again, like I mentioned, Jeff, with what he's done with downtown, I'd like to give kudos to Leah as well. I've worked with her on a number of things on the west side, and she fights very hard for this district, for the bid district. And we've had a few restaurants, for example, that had some problems and issues, and Leah took them under her wing, and helped guide them and gave them a second chance. I'm not going to go into detail on some of them, but the fact that she testified on their behalf gave our committee and the council the confidence to move forward that way. So I think it's very important. Second chances are very important. We're also working on an ordinance to massage parlors and such. I won't go into a full lot of detail, but we've had some problems there and maybe in some other areas of the city. And we're trying to just have a welcoming area that's good for all of us. And I commend Leah Weicker very much for all the work she's done proactively. And a lot of times you don't hear about those little stories, but I've seen them and I really appreciate her effort. Thanks.
Thank you, Alder Steuer, and thank you for your help with all of those things.
Anytime, you know where I'm at.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have a quick question for Leah. With the success of the EBT program for 2020, or the focus on that, is there any type of increased, lean in that you're going to do to take advantage of that, or to keep taking advantage of that momentum for this year?
Not necessarily an increase. We didn't use all of the grant from last year, but I think it was because the other markets were smaller. If it would come down to, there's a program where if someone swipes their card, their food card for $10, we'll match the first $10. Every day they can do that. They could do it 3 times a week at all 3 of the markets if they wanted. That does eventually run out, but we didn't run out of it this year. If we did run out, I believe we as a bid would probably contribute more funds. It really was incentive to get people to eat healthier, to try the fresh foods at the market, in turn helping out the farmers and the growers, as well as the people that are consuming the good food. And I think it's an awesome program. And I believe, I don't think we have proof or confirmation yet that HSHS is going to do it again this year. Wello kind of handles that half of the grant. But it's been so successful, I'm sure they will again. And we appreciate their contribution.
To follow up on that, how are you doing your advertisement for the I'm sorry, I just had a blank. How are you doing your advertisement for your farmers market?
So mostly, we are in a couple publications, and then mostly Facebook. We definitely
have you partnered with Yeah, I was going to say, have you partnered with, because I know you talked about the increase in the Somalian population as well as the Hispanic population. Have you partnered with any of those organizations, such as like Casa Alba, Melanine, or any of those other organizations and I guess this would be for all the areas to kind of get the word out that this is there. So just something, I just had that question.
No, that's a good question. Actually, the Wello grant was with Casa Alba, and I think there was a couple churches, Hispanic churches, that were also participants. And so they were given extra vouchers. So without the person having to swipe their card, they just had vouchers. I didn't track that because that goes right to Wello. I could only track how many I sold, which would be just the regular EBT. And we had the 400% increase. But the use of the double your bucks, we call that matching portion, was not utilized as well this year as it has been in the past. But again, at our market, it was utilized quite a bit more. But yeah, they definitely, Casa Alba was huge, instrumental in handing out those extra vouchers for the Hispanic population. And they were glad to hear that I saw, we could verify an increase in that population at the markets.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I will say, I did go to the military one a couple of times, and I would say the location being right there on the main thoroughfare, as well as the amount of parking that was available, was fantastic. Very easy in, very easy out.
Yeah, that's our motto: easy in, easy out.
Any other comments for Leah? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the budget.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so motion by Commissioner Daniels, second by Commissioner Bremer. Any further discussion? We'll go ahead with a voice vote. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will pass and move along to the March 2nd City Council meeting. And moving on to agenda item number 5, consideration with possible action on the Old Main Street Business Improvement District's year-end reporting for 2019 and 2020.
Thank you. Just a few quick comments regarding the financial condition of Old Main Street. From a bid revenue standpoint, just a couple quick comments on 2019's final budget and 2020's final budget. Bid revenues for 2019 came in at about $58,000, just a little bit over what was projected for that year. And that represents about 51% of the organization's total budget. I always am thrilled to be able to share that an organization with a budget of $112,000 has 6 employees. And that could never happen without the good partnership that Old Main enjoys with Downtown Green Bay Incorporated. So each of us, the event planner, the marketing director, the executive director, the assistant director, we all work for both organizations, and through a management contract, both organizations contribute to the team. 2020 bid revenues came in at $54,000, just a little bit under our budget, and that represents about 55% of our total proceeds. We're thankful that in both years we came in close to break even. 2020 just a little bit under budget, but that was planned, and that expenditure was a result of a public art initiative. When you take a look at the commitment to the arts on Main Street, we have funded most of the public art that takes place in that district. The Green Bay mural, Morty the Moose, many of those. This in 2019, we funded 2 sculptures that are now leaping into the East River. The Frog and Toad on the side of the Pumps building. So be sure to check that out. And then also back in 2019, we raised the dollars and funded the Unity mural, a beautiful mural that speaks to diversity that's located at the Art Garage. So initiatives like that, plan on more of that type of activity in the Main Street District. A few business highlights from 2019. We saw new apartment development in 901 Main open that year with some commercial space. There's interest currently in the commercial space at that location. And then just a few blocks away, the Whitney School redevelopment took place in 2019. 23 very nice units. Milwaukee View made a very nice investment on that property. And we are pleased that both 901 Main and Whitney School are 100% occupied. And it sends a nice signal that people want to live in that vicinity. And we hope that there will be more residential activity there. A few other businesses that showed up and made commitments. The Oral Health Partnership took a historic property, corner of St. George and Main Street. A company called Bug Tussle Wireless. They bought a large parcel, a warehouse building, and invested significantly in it. And they are into wireless technology. And so we're very pleased that they made a significant investment in the Main Street District. It was a robust year for events in 19. Typically, Old Main Street didn't have as much event activity as what the downtown district had. I remember when Summer in the Park or Gallery Night were the only events that took place there. But in 2019, we had Galentine's Day, Summer Solstice Celebration, Theater in the Park, again with Summer in the Park and Gallery Night. So there's more event activity that brings life and action and foot traffic. 2020, that switch got turned off, but we are evaluating some plans for some limited activity. Already have landed a sponsor for Theater in the Park, and we also plan to do a Gallery Night as well. So we're very hopeful to be making some of those events happen. In 2020, the most significant highlight in the Main Street district, and I spoke about this quite frequently, was the 6 or 7 new businesses that wanted to open on a 1 mile stretch. And we got some really nice recognition for that. The businesses got recognition for that. And we're very happy that businesses like Crown and Common, Dual Sports Bar, Morning Sun Yoga, Brewster's Place, Powers East, and for the longest time, the Big Tomatoes building was sitting vacant for years. And we had an organization, Sunrise on Main, a wonderful boutique, acquire that property, invest in it, and they have expanded very nicely with their services. And so they also have some other nonprofit linkage to doing business counseling for women. And so we're going to hear a lot more about their services and their growth in the months ahead. So that's what I wanted to share with you regarding Old Main Street. I would just give you just kind of a wrap up as I talked about how the work that we've done over the past 2 years is meant to serve as a catalyst, to be a welcome mat for additional entrepreneurs. And I am very pleased to say that businesses are responding. Just over the past 2 months, our downtown district already has 8 new businesses, combination of downtown and Old Main Street. 8 new businesses want to come to our districts, and 3 businesses have expansions taking place. I won't go through them all right now, but the expansions include Nicolay Bank recently acquired their entire property. They were a partnership when they built that building 16 years ago, but they are undergoing a very significant redevelopment. Their entire 3rd floor is gutted and being remodeled for their bank to expand at that location. The Automobile Gallery, another very unique venue in our downtown, thanks to the late Mr. William Red Lewis, who passed away in January. That board of directors is undergoing a very significant expansion at the Automobile Gallery, which will be opening around the middle of this year. And it's a venue which will be the Lewis Building that will accommodate groups of up to 300 or 350 people. Restaurants are always a topic that people like to talk about, and we have 2 restaurants under construction. So the former Scallywags is under construction, and the Republic Chop House management team is taking on another restaurant that will be opening in that building this spring. And another building that's been vacant for a long time, the Heel Shoe Store, got a larger location in the suburbs, and that property is now under development and is soon to become a high-end New York style deli. So those are just a couple of the new businesses. 5 of those new businesses are located in the Main Street district. So 7 last summer, 5 in the first couple of months of 2021. So we are very inspired by the response that the business community has to continue to choose Old Main Street and the downtown districts.
Wow, maybe I need to stay in downtown and not move to Whitney Park then.
Jeff, 2 of the best examples of your COVID pivot are in the Old Main Street area. And I was really impressed that you shifted from the summer solstice that wasn't going to do very well to the Small Business Saturday that was so very needed this past year. And that I don't think it's any coincidence that the amount of money you didn't spend on events matches the amount of money you did put into the public art. Again, something that could be done while COVID was going on. Thank you so much for that nimbleness.
Very good. Thank you for recognizing that. In both downtown and Old Main Street, we did reduce expenses. When COVID set in, we did everything we could to cut expenses because we knew there would be a lot of uncertainty, and there still is. But the board of Old Main Street did want us to press on with those types of physical improvements, and we hope that it continues to pay off for us.
Wonderful.
I had a quick question. Okay, thank you. Jeff, I was wondering, great stuff as usual. Thank you again. I was just wondering about the Farmers Exchange building. Is there any news on what's going on with that building on Main Street?
Okay, so is that the building located right next door to Los Bandidos, the former Los Bandidos?
On the corner.
Bandidos.
It's on the corner with the cupola, not the cupola, but.
Right.
Oh, it is right next to Los Bandidos, yes.
Oh,
okay. So, yeah, I thought the Farmers Exchange Bank was the old WG&R Furniture, which is now Oral Health Partnership. But actually, the building that you're referencing to, which is contiguous to the former Los Bandidos, there is nothing to report there. No activity that I'm aware of, Mark. We do see the former Los space as being very ready to go restaurant space, and hopefully in 21 we will see someone come in. It has awesome parking, and it's in very good condition. And we are hopeful to find a new tenant for that space this year.
Right. Well, I'm presently on the Landmarks Commission, and I see that Steph Hummel is here as well. So we're interested in those buildings like that, and just trying to keep the fabric of buildings within the city. So whatever we can do to get adaptive reuse or anything at all, very important. So
a lot of the nearby buildings across the street, Main Street Commons is 100% occupied, and nearby Old Town Crossing is mostly occupied. So that is very favorable to have some of these get redeveloped. And so, we hope to see some of that action in the months ahead.
Okay. Well, thanks again.
And Jeff, real quick to follow up on that, what about a place that, I used to eat at a long time ago when I first moved to Green Bay, but the old 1001 building? Is there anything in there? Maybe it's something, I don't know if it's something there and I just missed it, or is it, I think some stuff happened while I was gone.
Right.
But
I was just in that building last week and took some pictures, and it is in beautiful condition, beautiful woodwork. And I did talk to the realtor. There is a prospect kicking tires. He hopes to know in the next 2 to 3 weeks if we're going to see some activity there. But I'm glad to hear that there is interest in it. Again, as soon as we can go public when that happens, people will hear about it, because that's another property that is in great condition. And hopefully we just are able to find the right entrepreneur and they have the right timing for it. But there is interest in that space.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll certainly entertain a motion to approve the annual budget.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. I do have one quick, Chair Hanson, real quick question, and this might be for Jeff. I'm sorry, but what is going on with the old? Do we have any prospects with the old Greyhound bus station?
I am not aware of any at this point, so I have nothing to add on that one. But again, it is a parcel that could certainly be redeveloped. There is a better use than what we see here, but I am not aware of any activity at this point.
Right. Thank you.
Yes. And thank you very much, commissioners. Good to spend some time with you tonight.
Did we get a motion? If not, move to approve.
Do we have a motion from Alder Corpus Dax? So we just need a second.
Then a second.
Second from Vice Chair Miller. Any further discussion? We'll go ahead with a voice vote. All of those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, and that will move forward to the next City Council meeting on March 2nd. Moving on to the next item, consideration with possible action on the On Broadway Incorporated Business Improvement District's year-end reporting for 2019 and 2020.
Okay, am I here? Good. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you tonight, and thank you for your service to the city of Green Bay. I know that you guys put in a lot of hours and a lot of hard work, and I sincerely appreciate that. So I came in mostly prepared to talk about financials, and Jeff and Leah both came in with a lot of great content. So I'm going to try to backfill maybe with some high level things that are going on in the Broadway district. And so when you look at our budget, what you'll see from both 2019 and 2020, this is our business improvement district budget, which is slightly different than than the budget for on Broadway. And so I've only included the piece that's specifically related to the bid, which is about $65,000 per year. So you heard, Jeff and Leah both talk a little bit. I think Jeff said, their bid comprises about half of their annual budget. Leah's was 100%. Ours is about 6%. So we're very heavily dependent on special events. Not right or wrong, it's just different. And so it affects the way that our bid budget was impacted, particularly through COVID. So we have there's a couple of reasons why it's so low. One reason is because we do have a lower mill rate or a lower assessment rate. We are actually one of the lower ones in the state of Wisconsin. And that mill rate, whether you're aware or not, is typically set by the property owners themselves. We're around $1.29 per $1,000 of assessable value. State average is north of $2.60. So that's one of the reasons why the rate goes a little lower. The other reason is because of assessable value of property in your district. It's urban development with valuable buildings that can contribute more to a bid. And we obviously have a lot of that older historic structures within our district, right, which oftentimes don't carry that high value. And so oftentimes we're charged with trying to figure out how to do more with less. And one of the ways that we do that is we create a lot of events that are intended to generate revenue. It was interesting. We recently participated in a funding survey amongst bid districts within the state of Wisconsin. And I as soon as I get that report, I do want to share it with you. Because a couple of the questions that were asked through that funding model survey, how much local sales tax does your organization receive? And of course, in our bids, the answer is zero. How much does your city's levy support your business improvement districts? In our case, it's zero. How much for hotel room tax do you receive? In our case, it's zero. And so I bring this up because in other communities, they're finding ways, to support their business improvement districts through more than just the bid assessment. And that would be a conversation that I would love to just sort of spur here tonight is how does the city of Green Bay find ways to continue to ensure that our business improvement districts are able to excel and succeed at what they're doing. And so when you look at, again, our 2019 budgets compared to our actual, very close with one caveat. And specifically it is we did not choose to install the banners in 2019, and instead the Business Improvement District Board approved a reallocation towards administrative expenses. Most of our bid goes towards tangible products. And this was one caveat where they opted to shift that in 2019 to help support some of the staffing modifications that we made because they wanted to see that happen. And so specifically, we added a 6th person to our staff in 2019. And the bid wanted to help support that, to bring that person on board so that we could invest more time and effort towards some of those design components of our district, and design being streetscape amenities and how do you do some of those things like a pop-up park, which we did in 2019 that was incredibly popular, public art installations, general cleanup. When you think about like pulling weeds and picking up trash, it takes time and effort to coordinate a lot of those initiatives. And so the bid opted to support some of that. When you look at the 2020 budget, when the pandemic set in early on, we knew that we were going to be in a lot of trouble as an organization because, again, recognizing the significant percentage of our budget that comes from special events. And obviously, even back in March, we knew that we were going to be seriously impacted, although I think it was very difficult for us to predict by how much. And so what the bid did, they didn't want to see us essentially dissolve because that very well was a possibility on the table. And so they actually made a decision to reallocate the funding of the bid entirely to administrative support for us to use at our discretion to ensure that we could keep our doors open as an organization. And we still invested some of that bid funding into those things that you typically see, like annual maintenance and marketing, specifically marketing for the businesses in our district. But a big chunk of it ended up being used for administrative support. And so, as we went through 2020, we saw a very serious staff reduction. We went from 6 staff to actually under 1. At one point, I had furloughed myself just to ensure that we could continue to keep some of our event staff on for a part of the year to execute what was a very significantly altered farmers market. In a farmer's market, actually, with its modified format, that lost money, but we still felt it was very important to continue to maintain that, not only because of the relationships with our vendors, but also we wanted to be able to provide that fresh food for, and then of course, just finding ways anyway to attract people, foot traffic to our district. And then additionally, we had to cut all non-essential spending. So a lot of the things that we had previously planned to do, unfortunately, we had to put on hold. And one of the things that we talked about a lot with our board is that the amount of work that we had to do didn't necessarily reduce, but the type of work that we did was significantly altered. And we found ourselves working with a lot of businesses one-on-one, identifying and applying for grants that were relevant to them. We have a lot of old school business owners, some that I would even say don't even know how to turn on a computer. And so literally filling out grant applications for them because we didn't want to see them miss those opportunities. And so we spent a lot of hands-on time assisting with that. And then part of it was, and I've talked about this quite a bit, is sort of that self-care. And the analogy that we've oftentimes used is when you're on an airplane and they drop the air masks and they say you need to take care of yourself before you take care of the person next to you. And we recognize that that was a necessity for us in 2020. And so we spent a lot of time fundraising. Just so that we could continue to operate as an organization. We launched a crowdfunding campaign that was really meant to allow us to start to restore some of our staff. But we obviously had overhead expenses that continue to accrue. Fortunately, we were able to negotiate a lot of deferments with those expenses. Which quite frankly, if our vendors and our partners were unwilling to do that, I'm not sure what we would have done. And so we're very grateful to have people who, value our mission and see the value of what we're offering to the community and that they were willing to be flexible and allow us to do those types of things. So again, a lot of our effort was spent with the limited staff and the limited bandwidth that was remaining for us. It was really spent working directly with businesses, and a lot of our other initiatives were put on hold. We're very optimistic looking at this coming year, though. We were able to hire back our director of special events, largely in part because the crowdfunding campaign did get off to a wonderful start. It's not complete yet, but we're close. And that was really important because when you look at these large scale community events, whether it's, the farmers market, the 4th of July, Ignite Market, you're talking about a 6-month planning cycle, meaning that you have to start planning a minimum of 6 months in advance for those events to be successfully executed. And so we needed to get that staff person on board so that they could start that process with no guarantee, of course, that we were going to be able to host those events. And we still don't have that guarantee. And the reason it's so much more significant to us is because we need that income to support our organization. And so we're going to continue to identify grant opportunities to ensure that even if events can't happen, that we'll be able to continue to sustain ourselves. And we're grateful for the way that the community has stepped up to support what we're doing. In addition to working with the events, I just real quickly wanted to point out that housing has been a really critical need in our downtown for a long time. And Jeff has talked about some of those housing developments in his area. And we're very happy to report that Broadway Lofts, which is a subsidized housing project that constructed 107 units here in the district, that they're officially open and accepting applications. And then, of course, the Fort at the rail yard, that's a 225 unit market rate apartments. They have the elevator shafts are constructed. It's just a little bit while they're working through some labor shortages as a result of COVID, but they're going to pick up again here soon. But that's another very substantial housing development project here in our district that we're very excited to see happen. And the other thing that we continue to work with businesses, and of course, vacant spaces, you want to fill them as quickly as you can. And very excited to say that even though we did have a few casualties through the pandemic, which is always very sad to see, but we actually had more business growth than business loss in 2020. And I think that's something that you oftentimes see during times of recession, times of uncertainty, when you have job displacements in particular. A lot of individuals turn to entrepreneurship. And so, one of the things that we really like to do is work with those businesses and cultivate that. That's one of the reasons we do events. If we can get people started as vendors, you hope that you can eventually grow them into a storefront. Voyager Sourdough is a perfect example of a business where that's what happened to them. Aurora's Apothecary opened in the district this year. They had their start doing markets like ours. And so we see that those case studies and that they really pan out and they allow us to occupy these brick and mortar storefronts. So again, we despite the conditions, we had some great success with growing that entrepreneurial climate here in our district. So that's what we've done. Happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Brian. Were there any questions from the commission?
I do have one question for Brian. Brian, I know that Main Street.
I'm like, come on, definitely don't get all the questions.
Yeah. I know that Main Street Boutique left and relocated their business to Lime Kiln Road. Do you know why they left the downtown area? Was it because of rent, space, traffic? Do you have any additional information on that? And what is your recruitment plans to try to get another establishment in there?
Sure. It really boiled down to lack of foot traffic. I mean, they're the type of business that needs a higher volume of foot traffic. And obviously, when we had to cancel all of our events, that had a negative impact on businesses. And that was what happened. And I think for them in particular, if you think about who their target clientele is, there's probably a little bit more of that target demographic of theirs that live out in that Howard Swamico area. We were sad to see them go. I thought they were a great compliment to what was happening down here. And they obviously bought into our mission and what we're doing. Now, that said, that space was recently purchased. It's a condo building. And so the space was purchased. However, it's not a user occupant. The owner of the docking station actually bought that building. And what I love about the conversations I've had to date is this recognition that having retail or service-based businesses in those storefronts is really important to the success of downtown districts. There are certain types of users you'd prefer not to see, and they're very open to finding the right tenant for that space to make sure that we've got a good storefront presence that's facing Broadway. And so that space is for rent. If you know someone who's looking, let me know. We'd love to fill it with a great tenant. But it's our retail spaces continue to have very, very low vacancy rates, and that's exciting to see. So what we do in these instances when your inventory is low is we try to turn that conversation into we have the space, step one. Step two then is the right diversification of tenants, having the right tenants in the right spaces. And so that you can continue to start to put more of your effort into that conversation rather than trying to fill an abundance of vacant spaces, which fortunately we really don't have. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other discussion? I was going to say, I'm surprised to see Commissioner Bremer a little quiet, but then she unmuted herself. So
I was just noticing that Alder Stoyer had raised his hand.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, Brian, kudos to you as well. I know it's been a hard year. You know, I've had the privilege of serving with you on council, and I know that you're very passionate about Broadway. I'm actually part of a group called the Premier, which is in one of the buildings, and we're moving forward with some ideas and hopefully bringing some more tourism and culture and things like that. And we really believe in the Broadway district. So, you know, I hanker back to when that whole area, a lot of those buildings were talked about being taken down to put a big box store in. And I am so thankful we didn't do that. You know, we're looking at with all the housing and the various developments that are going on, we're going to be talking 7 to 8 times the value of that property than was originally looked at. So sometimes when we plan for things, we got to look to the future and see how, you know, people a lot of times want instant gratification. They want to see things develop right away. And if you're patient enough, you know, we're going to get through this. We're going to go through this. And, you know, I think once that happens, you're going to see some amazing things happen. And I think Broadway is going to be right there. So thanks again, Brian.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Alder Stoyer. First off, we love having the Premier down here. And obviously I love all the energy and the foot traffic that place brings. To your point about development, particularly on this site, you know, I'm not ashamed to have those critical conversations because you're right. There was that instant gratification conversation that was occurring at the time, but development is a long game, right? I mean, set aside the conversation about fit. Development is a long game, and you want the highest and best use for any property in your district. And that particular proposal at the time would have generated about $15 million of assessable value. By the time we're done here in this rail yard area, you will likely see $100 million of assessable value. That's better for the taxpayer. It's better for your downtown. It's better for the businesses that occupy these spaces. And so I'm very grateful for the foresight of those who had the ability to make those tough decisions at the time. I think they were the right ones. And you're seeing, we're not quite at that 100 million in this rail yard area, but it's substantial. I don't know the exact number, but I'm pretty sure we're over halfway there. And it's exciting to see that level of growth.
Totally agree. Thanks again.
And another thing too, part of our mission, and this is part of being a Main Street program, we actually have to make tangible efforts to protect historic properties. And those were historic properties that once you tear them down, you'll never get them back. And those are just beautiful properties that have been justice has been done on those to preserve them.
You know, I think a lot of folks look back to the time when the mall was built in the 70s and, you know, all the buildings that came down. We still have a lot of building stock in this city. And, you know, Steph Hummel, you know, she's working along with us with the Landmarks Commission. Steph, I see you. And, you know, we're working on an intensive survey of the city of Green Bay. We haven't done it since the late 80s. And I think it's going to be really important to look at what building stock we do have. And moving forward, we'll be able to make some great adaptive reuse ideas and projects. And like I said, when this pandemic is done, I really see some really great things happening in this city. So thank you again.
Yeah, Brian, just one more quick question to add to that. What is the progress on I'm just going to say high-end housing behind the Titletown restaurant in that whole mixed-use area there? I haven't seen. I saw the one bank of housing or townhomes or condos go up, but I have not seen any more development. Is that on pause until that first bank is sold, or are they rethinking that whole development area?
So I think you're referring to the condo building that was constructed. Is that correct? It was an 8-unit condo. And you know, their plan all along was they wanted to build that first one and see how the market reacted to it. I believe that a few of those were, you know, converted to rentals and just so that they could get some occupancy there, which is, you know, prompting them to rethink what that second phase would look like. I think, you know, they're going to take a look at that and try to determine, you know, what the market's looking for. If it's not that, what is it? and how do they construct it in an economical way so that obviously they sell? Because what they want there is condos. They didn't want those to be apartments. That was the objective. Obviously, there are other apartments being built in that area, but that was their goal in terms of creating sort of that mixed use development area, is that they did want to see some homeowner occupied units in that space.
Yeah, unfortunately, they outpriced themselves for that area. Yes, and I told them that from the beginning once I walked through. So that's unfortunate because that's a great area, but it was very aspirational.
And I think it's a good lesson in development, right? First in is always the riskiest project. And I think as that area starts to develop, I think you will see the demand for those types of units change, right? When you have dense housing, dense commercial development, it just creates an additional sense of activity that will hopefully bring some additional demand for those types of units.
Yeah, I think it's one thing demand, but it's another thing to pay that amount of money in a train track that's 100 feet away from you.
Oh, that's part of the urban appeal. Come on.
No, it's not.
Well,
I would add some.
My children would disagree with that. They would love that.
I would add some words of appreciation for your having recognized the need of many of your members to have help with those grants. That was really smart work and much needed. And Madam Chair, are we ready for a motion?
I certainly am.
Then I will move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Bremer, second by Vice Chair Miller. Any further discussion? And we'll go with a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving forward to City Council on March 2nd. Moving on to informational, number 1, Director's Report.
No real additional formal report tonight, Madam Chair. Just an observation. This is week 4 for me on the job. Do want to just reemphasize, and I think most folks on this meeting here appreciate this, but the strength of these organizations and these bid districts is an absolute asset to the city of Green Bay. As I was evaluating coming to this and even accepting this position, all of those activities and resources that are being leveraged in these areas, I've met certainly with Alder Johnson. I've certainly met with Jeff. I have not yet met with Leah yet. I'm looking forward to doing that and getting out and seeing her and learning more about Military Avenue. But just certainly want to be very complimentary, not only of the programming, but really of the talk about great advocates for the city of Green Bay and for their areas. Just a real privilege to work with everybody on that, and makes my job a lot easier when I know I've got folks like these people really out pounding the pavement and representing Green Bay. So.
All right. Thanks so much, Neil.
May I ask the director a question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Commissioner. Yes, I'll allow it.
Thank you very much. About a week ago, I received a to whom it may concern letter from one John Young about some lots on Perro Street. Am I right that others have received a similar letter?
Yeah, I know both I received a letter today and DJ also got a letter today. And I did talk to Paul about it. And he said to disregard that he's been working with Mr. Young and we're not supposed to be getting anything in the mail. So he doesn't know how he found our addresses. I'm sure it's, fairly public record somewhere. So, yeah. So he said disregard that it's something we've seen it before on our agenda, but they asked to hold it back. And it sounds like maybe they're having some issues. And so he's trying to appeal to us individually.
Okay. That's what I thought. I wasn't sure how the director would like it handled. Just ignore it, Neil, or?
I think at this time, Commissioner, I think that's what we'd recommend. If there's a formal action to be brought forward, it'll be posted as a regular agenda item and brought forward for your consideration.
Okay.
So thank you for asking, though.
Yeah.
All right.
Guess I should go check my mail. I didn't know we were getting fan mail now.
It's a nice fat envelope, so.
I'll look for it.
Yeah. All right. And then the date of the next meeting is March 8th of 2021.
Then I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Bremer, second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Well, good night, all. I guess we'll see
Good
you
night.
March 8th.